We're good. Welcome, everyone. And due to a technical error, this meeting is not live streamed, but is recorded, and staff are going to get it out later in the evening. You can visit the town's website at www.parrysound.ca. Prior to the open session, council met for a brief closed session. It was moved by Councillor Bachman, second by Councillor McCann, that pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001 C25 is amended. Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, performance reviews regarding Director of Finance and Director of Public Works. E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Summons served on town in response to property standards and fire code enforcement. And H, information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board by Canada, a province or territory, or a crown agency of any of them. Parry Sound Area Recreation and Culture Center update. That resolution was passed and the meeting was held. As far as additions to the item, we have one item that I'll mention, which is the Pride Proclamation, which is item 954. Are there any other additions or prioritization of the agenda? Councillor McCann.
I'm just wondering, as a point of order, Mr. Mayor, will we need a special motion to go forward with this recorded session first before going live, or being repeated afterwards?
I'll ask Ms. Johnson. I think we're okay, but
no, we don't need a special motion for that.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else with the additions or no? Okay. I need a mover and seconder for the agenda. Councillor McCann, Councillor Keith, that the council agenda for May 18th, 2021 be approved as amended. Anyone opposed to that? No, that's carried then. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Open item 921, the reserve funds return from Belvedere to participating area municipalities. As the West Parry Sound Health Center has a management contract with Belvedere, and my spouse as Chief Operating Officer of West Parry Sound Health Center participated in the executive committee determining amounts returned to municipalities.
Say thank you. Okay. Okay, very good. Anyone else? No? Minutes. I need a mover and seconder for the minutes. Councillor Horn, Councillor Burden. For the minutes from the regular council meeting held May 4th, 2021 be approved as circulated. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, anyone opposed to the passing of those minutes? No, that's carried then. Questions of staff? Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I guess this would be either for Chief Thompson or Mr. Cairns. With the demolition of the Friendship Center and the house behind it, the landscape has certainly changed. I think they did a great job in cleaning up the site. I just wondered if there were any concerns about hazardous materials, if everything went well as far as the public's best interest is concerned.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take an initial crack at that. And if Mike has anything to add, he should jump in at any time. The demolition of the property was done with a proper demolition permit. And through that process, all applicable law is complied with that is required to get a demolition permit and to dispose of that type of building residue. So to our ability to enforce the rules, that has been done correctly and properly in this case.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, okay. Correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Your worship, we have 3 items of correspondence. The first is from Alhan Rahimi, a resident of Parry Sound, with a letter with concerns about housing prices and the increase in housing, and a request that council do anything in its power to advocate and adopt policies that would support sustainable home price increases. The next item is from Yvonne Heeman. It is a letter of support of the town's denial of construction of a vehicle bridge over the fitness trail. This is the letter following the same text of previous letters that the council has received on this matter. And the third item is a resident's petition to the town of Parry Sound. The petition also identifies desire to keep the fitness trail open, hoping that the issue would be resolved, and just looking at that again, and asking that council refuse the demand for a bridge over the Rotary Fitness Trail, and as I say, the beloved Rabbit Canyon stretch of the lower path, and that the Rabbit Canyon portion of the lower trail, which has been in use by the public for decades, remain open. And those are the items of correspondence.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Next, we go to deputations, and we have a couple of deputations tonight. And the first is Andrea McIntyre, establishing fundraising efforts to purchase Rabbit Canyon property for public use. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, I do have, I wrote a letter to the newspaper a while ago saying that the idea is to fundraise to purchase the property from the owner and then donate it to the town. So I am here, and I don't want to take too much of your time because I know how precious it is. You obviously know the value of the trail to the public. You know the beauty of the shoreline, and we want to maintain that. I'm willing to spearhead a fundraising campaign to raise money to purchase the property from the owner. I have not yet, I have spoken, I have spoken to the owner's agent, who has not revealed to me actually the name of the owner, and I am not sure why. I have looked up the assessed value of the property is $95,000. The owner has paid taxes for the last 30 years. So I figure that if the owner could at least recoup most of those costs, that I'm assuming, I've heard that it's a she might be willing to do that. So essentially what I'm looking for is your blessing on moving forward with this. And then donating the piece of property to the town to remain undeveloped in perpetuity. Although having been on the property, I would like to do some remuneration to it to make it safer, and because people use it, let's face it, to make it safer and possibly productive.
Very honorable effort. Personally, I don't have an issue with that. I'll open up the floor to council members for comment or questions. Councilor McCann.
Yeah, thank you. No, it is a wonderful idea and a plan, and the only thing that I would really want to see in place was something. I mean, when you start asking the public for funding, you want to know that that you've got an agreeable purchaser on your hands.
Oh, yes.
I think before moving ahead, in order for me to give my blessing, I would like to see that the owner has offered some conditions and that indeed your efforts are not futile.
Okay,
That would
that's
be the only
wonderful.
thing.
That's wonderful because I don't want to have futile efforts either.
No.
But I wanted to
Mr.
see how,
Mayor,
sorry?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, in terms of who owns property in town, that information is available to the public, is it not?
That would be more of a question for possibly Mr. Beaumont, which is on the line, or Mr. LG. So they could give you the exact answer for that.
It'd be interesting to hear because there are certainly channels.
Yes, Mr. LG.
Through your worship, what we can do is set an appointment, and we can give Andrea the roll book and the roll number, and they are allowed to look up the ownership information themselves. We're not allowed to give it out directly, but we can show them the source.
Okay, very good. Now we know the process.
Good.
Okay.
And I will get in touch with Taylor tomorrow.
Okay. Are
Thank
there
you.
any, I'm just going to find out if there's any other counselors that have a question or comment. Counselor Keith?
Yes, my question, like, I think this is a really commendable offer that's here, but I would like to know, because she's asking the town if it's okay that she does this. I'm just wondering if this should be run through the town's lawyer, because I would feel more comfortable to know that there isn't some negativity that we wouldn't have realized at this point. I think that we should run that through, to be clear.
I think Mr. Thompson's. Yes, Chief Thompson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is not unprecedented in terms of, everyone will remember the park purchase and donation that was done beside the old school.
Yeah.
At a staff level, I think we could review that process, and if any legal advice is required after we review that, we can get that and provide that information to Ms. McIntyre.
Okay, good. Councilor McCann?
Yeah, this sounds very much like it would be a parallel situation to what the treetops was all about.
That's what Chief Thompson was referring to.
Oh, okay. I heard old school, and I thought there was something before, long before my time.
Any other comments, questions? No? Okay, thanks. Ms. McIntyre, you've got your task set before you there now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you listening to me.
Yeah, well, you're most welcome.
Okay. Good night.
Night. Our next deputation is Diana Clements, Principal, Parry Sound Forest School. Request for children at play sign on Parry Sound Drive. There we are. Oh, you're muted.
Someday people are going to make jokes about that, about muting.
Happens
Anyhow,
a lot.
yeah, I can just see having an argument with someone and saying you're muted. Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak to you briefly tonight. The actual request that I have to make is very, very short, but since I have 10 minutes, I thought I would just share a little bit of background on the Parry Sound Forest School with you. So, Ms. Johnson, could I share my screen, please? Is that the right person for me to ask?
Be Miss Johnson or Forrest.
You are able to share your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, no? Okay, thank you. So, so are you guys seeing my screen right now?
Nope.
Okay. forest, anybody? Is there something other than mute? Stop video, leave reactions, share screen. There we go. Okay, now are you seeing my desktop?
Nope.
No, share.
More gremlins.
Ah, there we
Oh,
go.
no, no, the problem is me. There we go. Now you got it?
Yeah.
All right, great. Okay, so I just need to move this over. Maximize it. You guys are right on top of where I need to click. There we go, present. Okay, so yeah, I'd like to talk to you just briefly about Parry Sound Forest School. Now, sorry. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, as I said, my name is Diana Clements. I'm a retired elementary teacher. I retired 6 years early from the Near North District School Board because I wanted to start a new business in town, which is a forest school. You may not have heard of forest schools before. They are a nationally and internationally growing movement. They've only been around in Canada for about the last 10 or 15 years, but have been present in Europe for over 50. The location where we're running our forest school is out of Canadore College. And actually the very first Zoom meeting you guys had was the evening that you approved me to have, I can't remember the correct words, but gave me permission to put my little building on the parking lot at Canadore. We normally are in the forest in this area here. We also go all the way around the pond, which means we go on Parry Sound Drive when we do that. And we also play up here in the forest, but that's just the location that we're talking about. So you might be wondering why I would leave my work early to...
I'd like you to think back for a moment
wait a
to
minute,
your own
just listen to
childhood.
this.
Where did you feel most alive? Where did you have the most fun? Probably if you are over 30, you'll be thinking that it was a place that was outside, and probably it was in nature. That was just the way kids were raised when I was young. But things have changed dramatically now. With technology, more and more children are spending less and less time outside. And this has a big, big impact on their development. Technology has changed, but the developmental needs of children has not. Increased screen time has been associated with childhood obesity, with diabetes in young children. I even see children arriving at school not able to hold their pencil properly because they haven't got enough core strength, because they spend so much time sitting rather than playing. Forest School hopes to be one small antidote to some of these problems. We also know that we are in an environmental crisis. And how are children going to learn to want to protect and care for the environment if they have never even spent any time in it? That's another reason why forest schools are really important. It has been amazing. For 30, you'll be thinking that it was a...
There we go. Okay, I'm not going to go through that whole video, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on why I have chosen to run a forest school. These are just some pictures of activities that we do at the forest school. Children, it all looks like stuff that we did when we were little, but kids just don't do this anymore. They don't catch frogs, and they don't play with worms and do all the things that help them to connect with the environment. This is an example of one little guy and how much a little child can learn while playing outside. He's going to learn perseverance, problem solving, how to take risks. He's learning gross motor skills. And he's learning how to decide for himself if something feels right. How are kids supposed to learn how to take risks and make good choices if they never have the opportunity to take even the smallest risk like this?
Did it get in your boot? No. Good job. Oh, that's how you're going to get up here. Okay. We all have to pick a team. I'm with the fast foot ducky. What are you gonna do now?
Think about what he's learning, just about how capable he is.
It is about 1:30. He's getting pretty close. He is getting pretty close. I hope he's getting bigger. Look at him climbing up that log. He is being so careful. You're really paying attention to how you. Wow, look at that. He's gonna stand up now. That's right, Daddy. Oh, come. See, I found a way.
That kind of perseverance and that kind of learning can't be found anywhere but outside. Our children get to handle wildlife like caterpillars. They get to use tools. They learn how to whittle. He would have done all of this boat building completely independently. We let them follow their own leads and just support them in what they're doing. They climb trees. They get exposed to wildlife, including species at risk, like this Blanding's turtle. I think this is another little video. This is the kind of stuff that we do. We have really good insurance. I should tell you that as well. Oops, sorry. Come on, there we go. They use tools. They learn how to whittle. We have a fire permit. This is an example of a PD day camp we had in the winter. Our programs operate all the way from toddlers with their parents up to kids in grade 6. Some of them are, we have an after-school program as well. Buses from Parry Sound Public and St. Peter's drop their kids off. Here's another example of an activity we did this winter.
So we're gonna have it at a little bit of an angle, and it's only gonna go in.
Oh, I actually have to pause this. Mr. Mayor, am I allowed to go to 13 minutes or do I need to stop at 10?
Well, we do have a bit to go through on this agenda tonight, so
Okay.
if we can,
I'll carry on then. There we go. We also have very qualified educators. Both of these young people are early childhood educators. Eric on the left moved to Parry Sound specifically to work at the Parry Sound Forest School. Sarah Burns is a local girl, and she also just finished her ECE education and is also working with us. So sometimes our adventures take us along or across Parry Sound Drive, where motorists do not expect to see a group of children. We'd like to request signage to help warn drivers to slow down and be on the lookout for us. And I have no idea what kind of signs we would be looking at. I just wanted to express that there's a lot of trucks and a lot of traffic, and a lot of it's coming off the highway, and you know how it's hard to slow yourself down when you come off the highway. I would just really appreciate it if we could put up some signs just to help it be a little safer for the kids when they're walking along the road.
okay. All right. I think staff can take a look at that. Was that everything with your presentation then?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Any questions from council? I can't, you have to, yeah, okay, now I can see everybody. Councillor Bachman.
Thank you very much for your presentation. That's very interesting and really neat to see how your program has brought people to work in the community and offering a different aspect of learning for children, and how it's utilized with both parents as well. I find it rather interesting when I'm driving down Parry Sound Drive, and I'm always looking to see the toddlers and the kids playing by in the forest there. And I just wanted to know if you've had any, instances where it was unsafe because of traffic at any time, and what have you seen with the police presence on that road?
I have not had any instances where we felt threatened or in danger at all. We do our best to walk, especially along the pond at this time of year. We walk on the inside of the guardrail, but in the winter we can't because there's a snowbank. I have not had any specific incidences where we felt there was immediate danger. And there's a lot more police going up and down the road now that the police station is down there. But I don't know that that necessarily changes the speed of the traffic. I'm not really sure.
Thank you.
I'm just going to ask Chief Thompson a quick question. Would a sign like that have to be done by bylaw, or is that just a case of posting that type of sign that Ms. Clements is looking for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm actually going to defer that to Mike Kearns to speak on that matter.
Okay.
Certainly, through your worship. So warning signs, to my knowledge, don't need to be established by bylaw. So this would be typically one of the yellow, easily identifiable in terms of signs in the sign manual by one of the yellow signs, which is typically representative of a warning sign rather than a regulatory sign, which typically would be adopted by bylaw.
Okay. All right, good. Councillor Keith?
Yes, I was just wondering, Mr. Clements, how many children would you have at a time in an outing?
This year, again, it all depends on the various programs and the age groupings. I think this year, the biggest group of children we had at once would have been somewhere between 12 and 15. Oh, during the summer, we have groups of up to 15 to 18 during the summer. Yeah.
Would there be very many that would be along the highway, along that roadway there, or would they probably be also in doing other activities because obviously there's nature and bush around?
When we're along the road, it's normally because the whole group has gone out for a hike. Also, sometimes we cross the road to play in the road allowance in the bush on the other side of the road. Yeah, but no, it wouldn't be. It's usually the whole group at once when we're doing that.
Okay. Any further questions? I'm just going to ask, is council agreeable to having staff look at putting signage up? Just raise your hands if. Okay, good. All right. So we'll have staff look at putting some kind of signage up so that there is an identification that children are there. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Oh,
Councillor McCann.
Yeah, very quickly, I'm just wondering if that sign, because it is a highway and people do forget to slow down, if that sign had a flashing amber light on it too, would that help? Or would that be a better warning for the kids? And I'm not sure about the feasibility or practicality of it, but I just wondered if that would be a good idea.
You have to, that staff can discuss that, I think, because that would be, you know, what we have, what we'd have to purchase, that sort of thing. So, yeah, okay. But staff can take a look at that at the same time.
okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, next is reports, and I'm going to go by the screen as to who's there. So we'll start with Councillor Borneman.
Well, I'll get you off to a flying start this evening, Mr. Mayor. I have no report, so
Okay.
That'll speed things up considerably.
All right, thank you. Next is Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'll be quick. Your worship, fellow councilors, staff, and the public. I did attend a committee of adjustment meeting, and there were two minor variances approved that was it there. The other thing was, and the matter will be on the council agenda tonight, but I've attended a total of 3 Zoom meetings in reference to the Ontario government's plan to have detachment boards that are consistent throughout the province. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On May 10th, I attended the Parry Sound and Area Chamber of Commerce meeting. On May 12th, I attended the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame committee meeting, getting ready for the virtual June 25th presentation for the 2020 inductees. Please visit the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame website, Stocky Center, to purchase tickets and further information. Also on May 12th, I attended the same committee of adjustment meeting that Councillor Keith has already talked about. That's it. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Backman.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Your Worship. For this report, I have one meeting that I attended, an executive meeting with Park to Park. I did participate in the Phenom conference today, which I will report on at the next council meeting. And then I have also taken several resident calls regarding bylaws. And that's my report for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCann.
Well, thank you. This must be a special night because, like Councillor Borneman, I too have no report to make. So, but I would just add that on behalf of Friends of Belvedere, we'd like to thank folks for going out of their way and donating their redeemable empty cans and bottles and such. I would put out a plea asking people to watch the signs when they're dropping stuff in. It would help if you would sort them. There are separate cans for beer cans and there are separate barrels for pop cans and such. It makes the job a lot easier for us, and the more we can sort, the less goes out to the landfill site. But it's a great fundraiser for us, and it helps bring in money to Belvedere that is not normally there for the items that normal avenues of funding would cover. So we thank you very much for that. And we're always in need of volunteers, but this is just a thank you, and please continue to support us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burton.
Did you call me?
Yep.
Okay,
Your
my chair squeaked just as you said it.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to get out of that sun that's beaming right in here right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council, staff, and public. On May 5th, I took part in a phone interview with a company that has been contracted to help prepare a long-range plan for the District Social Services Administration Board. The firm HSC will be seeking input from board, staff, management, and the public in preparing this 5-year plan, which they intend to have ready for board approval in September of this year. On May 13th, I attended the monthly meeting of the Social Services Board. All is good there, busy as usual. On May 12th, our regular meeting of the Downtown Business Association was not able to proceed due to lack of quorum. However, on the same day, we unfortunately received a letter of resignation from our executive director, April Denman. April has been offered another position that she did not feel she could turn down. She was generously offered to keep active and involved at the DBA, including hiring and training her replacement. April has done a great job during her time heading up the DBA, and I thank her for all that she has done. Certainly, I wish her great success in her new position with the Kawartha Credit Union. Also, April asked me to pass along to council, staff, and public a report of the activity on social media. So I'm going to run through that. People visit our socials not just for retail sales. We're about to launch our blog post section on our website. We have a great relationship with the Parry Sound Tourism, Radio Works, and Explorers Edge. Facebook is our top platform. Our Feature Friday posts do incredibly well on Facebook. Our almost daily posts generally reach between 2,500 and 3,500 people. We have a great handle on the gender and age groups we're reaching, as well as their location. Instagram, our quickest growing platform. In just over a year, we gained 701 followers. We use the story section for those members who are almost daily posters, and we get great traction from reposting on this platform. Twitter, our best platform for reaching area media. We have a great following that includes a lot of tags, retweets, and shares when it comes to local area stories. This platform helps us with reaching further without as many limits or paying for campaigns. Our website stats continue to grow, and we will aim to redirect people to it as often as possible, like we did with our successful Women's Weekend videos. We meet on a monthly basis to review the plan and plan ahead our social media strategies. We continue to work on new strategies to reach all of our members. During the pandemic, there have definitely been some challenges, but we have pivoted on several occasions and are happy with the direction things have went. Our recent community initiative of the hashtag PS Sign Wars was a big hit and allowed us to gain more followers and secure further community engagement. And April, I believe, is with us this evening. So April, thanks again for all you've done, and good luck in your future. And that's my report.
Thank you. Yes, April, thank you for all of your efforts. I see you up there, and I know we've got some DBA business that we've got to take care of later in the meeting, but thank you for all of your efforts and wish you all the best. Okay, so my report, council staff and public, May 6th, they attended an AMO pre-meeting and then an AMO MOU meeting with the province. May 7th, I attended the AMO Audit Committee meeting. May 13th, Councillor Burden's already mentioned the Parry Sound District Social Services Board meeting. May 18th, today was the Phenom Conference. I really have to say well done. Great mix of speakers and information sessions. Broadband is always certainly a major concern to northern municipalities. The session that they had on the Starlink program from SpaceX was really, really interesting. You know, it's a very interesting way of getting your internet, and it's going over really, really well with a number of people. Now there's a huge waiting list. So, you know, whatever works, right? That's however you can get your internet. It was also good that they were able to have a multi-minister forum. Minister Scott, Bolo, Romano, Bethenfalvey, Fullerton, Clark, and Urick were able to take questions. We did have a question that was submitted, but it was the Phenom board referred it to study it themselves. They want to check with their membership on, you know, if it's impacting other municipalities as well. So our question didn't get asked to one of the ministers, but Phenom is looking at that. So that's good. Our economic development officer has already put together a proposal for to get the Phenom conference here, hopefully in 2023. And Vlad will be following up with Phenom to see where that sits now as the conference is finished, and I'm sure they were quite busy beforehand. So the next Phenom conference next year is in North Bay, and usually we followed North Bay in the cycle. The Phenom board and the attendees enjoy Parry Sound in the area, so they certainly want to come back. I know that, so let's make sure we extend that opportunity, which we're doing. So two things. If you haven't filled out your census form, please do get it done. We did ours online, and it was quick, easy because it was short form census. It was done in 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. So please get that done soon. That is important information going forward. And also get vaccinated as soon as you can. If you haven't, make arrangements to do so. I have my appointment on May 25th for my first vaccination. So we've got to get as many people vaccinated as we can so we can get back to some kind of normal. And that's my report. Okay, so we'll start with item 911. And it's moved by Councilor, it's a direction moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor Bachman. The staff be directed to submit a request to delegate with the appropriate provincial minister on the following topics. And this has to do with delegations at the AMO conference this August. Number one, property tax exemption under 3123 of the Assessment Act RSO 1990 and C A31 relief of the poor. And the second item would be curbing the rising cost of municipal insurance premiums. Comment? Councillor Bachman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just curious to know where things stand with our past delegation regard to consumer goods regarding the Bay Street property, and if that's something we continue to delegate for or not.
Oh yeah, that right now is, I'm waiting for an answer from our MPP.
Okay.
Because that's in the hands of the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Relations.
Okay.
And we've had the conversation with her a couple of times, and we hadn't heard anything back. So I have corresponded with our MPP to find out where we sit with that one right now, and I'm waiting for a response back from him.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the direction? No. Okay. Anyone opposed to that direction? No, that's carried then. Item 921, moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Burden. The council approves the transfer of $61,684 received from Belvedere to a long-term care reserve for the purpose of assisting in offsetting any future levy increases. Councillor Borneman, then Councillor McCann.
So just as a bit of background, Mr. Mayor, through our audit process and other financial revelations at Belvedere, we've been made aware that we're only allowed to have a maximum of 10% of our operating budget in capital reserves. Belvedere had the good fortune of being of exceeding that limit unknowingly. So as a result, we're moving this money back to the municipalities. We're asking that council give consideration to establishing this reserve. As I've reported the past couple of times, we've been allotted a minimum of 24 new beds, and other ventures are being investigated. And it's uncertain, quite frankly, at this point, what financial commitment might be asked in the future. So prudence would suggest that maybe we set this money aside and have it available to cover some of the costs that might be incurred in providing more bed spaces down the road.
Okay, Councillor McCann.
Yeah, Councillor Borneman basically said what I had in mind. I was going to ask Stephanie to provide a little bit more background, but Paul has done a good job of that. Can we introduce a motion to set up a reserve as Paul has mentioned at this point in time?
You mean like we have in our resolution?
Well, this is just to approve the transfer, I understand, which comes back to the town. But in order,
Well, because this is going to a reserve.
okay, all right. Oh, my mistake then, okay.
Okay,
My mom's always said, read the whole sentence.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
good?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
all
yeah.
right, okay. All right, anything further? No? Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No? Okay, good. That's carried. Okay, 941 moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith. Council Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound directs staff to bring a stop up and closure bylaw for the Ashwood Drive Road, Themer 60A Seguin Street allowance, and further that, one, the applicant submits a deposit of $5,000 to pay for the costs associated with public advertisement and appraisal and legal costs, assuming arrangements can be negotiated to the town's satisfaction, and that the survey and transaction ensure that a 7.7 meter wide strip of land be deeded to 58 Seguin Street, and that any historic encroachments from 60 Seguin Street be deeded accordingly, and the balance of the lands be deeded to 60A Seguin Street. And 3, any easements for utility services be surveyed and registered accordingly. Discussion. Councillor Borneman.
I'm wondering if Mr. Algie could give the public sort of the Coles Notes English version of what we're up to in this case.
Through your worship, essentially what's going on is there's an old road allowance that has existed and used to one time actually connect up to Ashwood Drive before there was a rail line that cut it down the middle. It's right beside the church, and 2 houses that have been there for quite some time also have been using it for pedestrian and vehicular access. The town, in staff's opinion, doesn't have much use for it nor see it in our long-term plans. And there was a request to purchase it by 60A Seguin Street. Then as part of the process, we ran it by the neighboring properties to make sure that it was a win-win-win, or as closest to one that we could likely get. The church did request 7.7 meters, and we're looking to hopefully fix any encroachments that go to Seguin, or 60 Seguin, which is a staircase and whatnot. And yeah, the next steps would be, if it's approved, that it'd be appraised and surveyed and sold and advertised in the paper, and eventually a bylaw would come back to council for a purchase and sale agreement.
Okay. Councillor McCann.
I think this is a good idea. It cleans up that area very well, and everybody knows where they are or not supposed to be. So this is good.
Anything further? No. Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No. Okay, that's carried. Okay, moved by Councillor Bachman, second by Councillor Burden, that whereas the municipality of McDougall in a letter dated March 25th, 2021 has authorized Sound Seals Insulation to dispose of non-hazardous materials and asbestos material per regulations at the McDougall landfill site at 214 McDougall Road. And whereas Sound Seals Insulation has submitted a request to the town of Parry Sound and to the township of Seguin for permission to temporarily store asbestos at their facilities located at the Parry Sound Area Municipal Airport, owned jointly by the town of Parry Sound and the township of Seguin. And whereas the town has been advised that the storage of said asbestos is anticipated to occur only in cases where Sound Seals Insulation has been unable to meet the day-end closure time of the McDougall landfill site, and that asbestos will remain in vehicles within its closed and locked facility at the airport for the next earliest delivery and disposal at the McDougall landfill site. And whereas the Municipal Airport Commission is responsible for overseeing the operation of the municipal airport, and whereas the town has been advised that the Municipal Airport Commission has agreed to this proposal so long as Sound Seals operates in accordance with regulations. Now therefore, the town of Parry Sound, as joint landowner of the Parry Sound Municipal Airport, hereby grants to permit Sound Seals Insulation to store asbestos in its vehicles and parked within its locked facilities at the municipal airport for earliest transport and disposal at the McDougall landfill site upon the following conditions. 1, that the town of Ship of Seguin provides similar approval. 2, that Sound Seals Insulation abides by all regulations and all necessary approvals remain in force. 3, that prior to expiry, Sound Seals Insulation provides to the town annually a copy of its certificate of insurance in the amount no less than $5 million, adding the town of Parry Sound as an additional insured. Okay. And 4, that the Parry Sound Area Municipal Airport Commission as landlord enters into an amended lease agreement with Sound Seals Insulation, naming the town of Parry Sound and the township of Seguin as additional insured, and the requirement to annually provide a certificate of insurance to the landowners and any other amendments to the commission deems appropriate. Councilor Borneman.
So I want to start by saying Seguin passed this resolution at their meeting last night to start with. With respect to Sound Seals Insulation, they've been a long-term good tenant at the airport. Their primary business is foam insulation, but through the course of their activities, quite frankly, they found that there's a market for removal and disposal of asbestos insulation. We all know that that's pretty tightly regulated by the province. Workers have to be certified. They have to wear certain clothing, masks, equipment. It has to be stored in a particular fashion and disposed of as directed. The reason that this is at our table tonight, that the legislation controlling asbestos dictates that the property owner has to agree to this, and the town and Seguin are the property owners at the airport. The commission is deemed to be the landlord, so it's been referred to the municipalities for their agreement. And as you can see, there are controls going forward. There are requirements of the proponent going forward. So that's why we're here tonight asking for this permission from council.
Okay. Any other comments, discussion? No. Okay. Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No, then it's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Horn, that staff respond to bylaw complaints utilizing an enforcement approach consistent with established practice for all complaints without regard for expected future changes to existing bylaws. Discussion.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I brought this forward for tonight's council meeting because I think after the last council meeting and also from hearing some of the property owners in our community being concerned about the consistency of bylaws, that I think it's really important that even if we're looking at some bylaws maybe changed down in the future, the citizens need to be comfortable knowing that there's clarity, there's accountability, there's consistency. So the bylaw that is in effect at the moment will continue to be in effect and enforced accordingly until whatever new bylaw may result further down the road. But so the purpose of this is really, to me, some good housekeeping and to be consistent so we all know what path we are on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCann.
I agree with Councillor Keith here. I think it is important to be consistent. People need to know what to expect. And so I certainly support this moving forward until such a time that the bylaws change.
Right. Any other comments, discussion? No? Okay. Oh, Chief Thompson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw enforcement is happy to follow this direction if this is what council deems appropriate tonight. I do want to caution council in unintended consequences of directions such as this, which appears to me as being raised out of one situation with maybe not understanding the implications on many other situations that do occur throughout the municipality and over the years. I can think specifically of one very recent situation where if this direction is provided, that would have changed courses of action that maybe would not have been to council's liking about the way that bylaw enforcement has enforced situations in the past. We do use discretion in many cases when we're enforcing bylaws to try to achieve a productive outcome for everyone who is involved in any particular situation. We do apply rules in a consistent fashion, and that may be at times in not being extremely aggressive in our pursuit of enforcement, or in other times, depending on the situation, it may be that we are extremely aggressive. So I caution, however, that being said, I do understand if this is council's will in this particular case to have something like this move forward, we will execute on council's will and do this into the future.
Okay. Any other comment, question? No? Okay. Then anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? I got one in opposition to passing the resolution. Okay, then it is carried. Okay, item 953, moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Horn. That whereas the Community Safety Policing Act, CSPA 2019, calls for the end of Community Policing Advisory Committees, CPACs, and the creation of the Ontario Provincial OPP Police Detachment Boards. And whereas the Ministry of the Solicitor General has developed an OPP Detachment Board framework that will allow affected municipalities, First Nations, the flexibility to create a board that reflects community and local needs. And whereas the Ministry of the Solicitor General has asked municipalities and First Nations within a detachment area to work together to determine the composition of their board and the manner in which they will submit their proposal to the ministry. And whereas the members of the existing West Parry Sound District CPAC have indicated interest in establishing a board representative of CPAC municipalities and First Nations. Now, therefore, the Council of Town of Parry Sound hereby supports submission by the CPAC representative from the municipality of McDougall to the province of Ontario, the Ontario Provincial Police Detachment Board proposal substantially in the form attached, representing the 7 West Parry Sound area municipalities and Henvey Inlet First Nation, with the following additional considerations proposals. 1, the following be included as administrative resource / infrastructure required to support the establishment of the detachment board. So the points are administrative support for taking minutes of meetings, prepare, distribute, and publish agendas and meeting notices, prepare draft policy documents, administer expenses, prepare annual reports and cost estimates, and maintain board records. A secure place for records, meeting location, electronic requirements, establish funding requirements, personal accident insurance, legal advice, honorariums, ongoing training, travel and meals, advertising, and any other administrative resource / infrastructure common to a board. That it be clarified with the province that the funding for these resources / infrastructure be through the province, as the establishment of detachment boards is an initiative of the province. And 3, that in an effort to reduce duplication of effort and training, that the board be established upon the 2022 municipal election. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the municipalities within the West Parry Sound District and Henby Inlet First Nation. And Councillor Keith, I know you want to speak to it.
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate this being on the agenda tonight. I think we go back in time just a little bit. We'll do a Coles version. I'll do my best here. But basically, about a year ago, the province had decided that they wanted to go forward with having consistency throughout the province with the OPP detachment boards. And therefore, first of all, they went around the province and asked various municipal reps, anybody who was involved in policing matter issues, to come and bring forth their ideas of what they would hope for in detachment boards, what was working and what wasn't working. Gathered up the information, and then the next stage, which is like now into this year, where any of the municipalities that were involved with OPP detachments, there was the act that came into place, the community policing advice. We're the Community Policing Advisories Committee, but there's a Community Safety and Policing Act, and in that act, they came up with the concept that detachment boards throughout the province should be consistent. So they had a guideline of what they expected, which included each area, the municipalities being able to work together. There would be some flexibility, but being able to work together as a detachment board with also a 20% of community representation and 20% provincial representation. Now, in our area, we had been under the Section 5, basically the Community Policing Advisory Committee, and it was working really well in this area with our detachment. So we were very happy with what was there. But there's always change. And so we know that moving forward, the detachment board means that we will have to fall in line to a certain degree. But because there is flexibility, and because of course they still wanted input, the municipalities involved and First Nations, we decided, each one of the member reps decided to get together and see what is it that we have in common, and what would we feel would be best representative by our community in this area. Now, the provincial government had provided various Zoom meetings for us, and they even had a Solicitor General had a Zoom meeting for us with just our own Community Policing Advisory Committee members, so we could ask questions. As a result of that, and various discussions with their member representatives, what is presented here was the government gives you a proposal of what to complete. And it was agreed within members that we would each go back to our own respective council and give our council an idea of what we are proposing, and then afterwards it returning to in this case, Councillor Ryman had agreed to prepare complete the proposal together for all of us, and so that he would input the information that you see here in the administration box. So what is here is asking for basically support of our town council so that when we go back for the town of Parry Sound goes back to the committee, we can show where we were on board and the things that the areas that we feel need to be that the Solicitor General needs to be aware of, because down the road with the proposal, even though we were going to have some flexibility, I think we're all aware this is going to cost us money. So it needs to be, although this is the initial boxes that we are filling in, we need to be able to give a good idea to the province, the kind of things that we are going to need down the road. And so this is the purpose of the resolution, as well as the number 3 point, which had to do with hoping that training of new board members could actually occur after the municipal election rather than just before, and then who knows who's going to be back in for the next term. So that gives you an idea what is being requested here. Ooh.
Discussion. Okay. Councillor Keith, so you want this passed tonight then, or?
I feel that if we need to show some support that in going back to the committee, that we are supportive of this. And if we don't pass it, I'm not quite clear on how we make it clear to the other municipalities that we're on board.
Okay. Yep. Councillor Borneman.
So as I understand it, Councillor Keith, we'll pass this tonight. It'll go back. There'll be some rehashing, renegotiation of this. And then what comes out of that will be brought back to council for consideration.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And we're asking every municipality to do the same thing so that we're all on board and consistent before it is forwarded to the province. Now, the provinces has initially asked for a date of June 7th to come back to them. We have, of course, our next council meeting June 2nd. However, after listening to 3 Zoom meetings, it was clear to me there's a little bit of wiggle room should there be a concern. So we can only hope for the best. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So any further discussion, questions? No? Anyone opposed to passing this resolution then? No? Then it's carried. Item 954, moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Burden. Whereas the month of June is recognized as Pride Month, a time for the world's lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, intersex, queer, questioning, two-spirited communities, LGBTQ2ST, and allies to celebrate diversity. And whereas many strides have been made in overcoming prejudice and in creating inclusive policies and law, and more work needs to be done. Now therefore be resolved, the Council of the Corporation, the Town of Parry Sound, does hereby proclaim June 2021 as Pride Month and encourages citizens to commit to continuing awareness, inclusion, and acceptance for all members of our community, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Discussion, questions? Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No, that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Moved by Councillor Backman and second by Councillor McCann, that bylaw number 2021-7131, being a bylaw to strike the tax rates for municipal purposes for the year 2021, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Counselor McCann, second by Counselor Bachman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No, that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Counselor Burden, second by Counselor Borneman, that bylaw number 2021-7132 being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of the Board of Management of the Downtown Parry Sound Business Improvement Area and to strike the tax rate thereon for the year 2021 be considered as read for a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third reading? And that's carried. Moved by Counselor Borneman, second by Counselor Burden, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Nope. Okay. Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No, that's carried then. Thank you. Moved by Counselor Burden and second by Counselor Borneman, that bylaw number 2021-7134 being a bylaw that authorized an agreement with Holley Transportation Services Incorporated for provincial fuel tax rebate be considered as read a first time. All in favor? Yep, that's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Counselor Borneman and second by Counselor Burden, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any, Counselor McCann?
Yes, thank you. Could Mr. Cairns tell us a bit about what's going on here for the benefit of the public?
Yes, certainly. Through you, Your Worship. So we're happy to bring this before council because this is a good news story, which should always be welcome. So there is a program through the provincial government for organizations, including municipalities, to recuperate funds paid through the taxation of fuels used on road for activities that do not require on-road taxed fuel to conduct. So this is often referred to as a Pto Fuel Rebate. The Pto being a power takeoff unit on a truck, typically will run auxiliary units on a truck. Now, the pretense of this is that we could conceivably purchase colored fuel for some of those activities. It's not a practical exercise when you have to run the vehicle on road to get to places and to conduct maintenance activities. So there is this process through the Ministry of Finance, and they allow us to recuperate those funds based on a series of formula that are applied. It has to do with mileage, activities conducted, type of equipment, quantity of fuel purchased, and that sort of thing. So Holley Transportation Services is a company that we became aware of through Ontario Good Roads Association. And they provide this service. So they employ people who have specialization in this area. They offer all of the services. We supply them with our data. They submit it to the Ministry of Finance. We receive a rebate, and we do essentially a 60-40 split of the monies recuperated, where they retain 40%, we receive 60%, and they also agree to represent us if there are ever any audits conducted through this process. So we're allowed to go back 3 years to recuperate. So unfortunately, we can't go back further than that, but getting started now allows us to recuperate that at least back 3 years and then move forward from that point forward on an annual basis. This contract is for 3 years and would automatically extend unless it were canceled by one or either of the parties.
So Yeah,
good.
it's one, is this a different program than the gas tax rebate we've been getting over the years? I'm thinking about funds that were used to purchase the Big Blue van for community support services. Is this a different program?
Absolutely, yes.
It is, eh?
It
Okay.
is completely different. That's a program administered through partnership with AMO. It may, at some point, the same sort of tax funds may be involved, but not on the face of it. So
Yeah.
this just allows us to recuperate funds or taxes paid on fuel that we shouldn't have necessarily incurred.
Wonderful. Better in our pocket.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, Mr. Kearns, I appreciate the idea of this program, and it certainly sounds an opportunity right now of this expertise, but is there a way that any of our employees, shall we say, could job shadow so that 3 years from now we get 100% rather than just 60%? Or is it just too complicated and the other expenses would just cancel it out? Could you please advise?
Certainly, through you, your worship. So, I mean, that's a question that often comes up. I've dealt with this in some previous experiences as well, and that question often comes up. So on the face of it, it may seem like a viable option. However, the expertise is fairly specialized. I'm not saying it's impossible, but in most cases, the argument comes that we haven't been recuperating it because we don't necessarily have the in-house expertise and time to dedicate to the process. These folks, that's all they do, so they're very familiar with it. And should the unfortunate situation arise where there is an audit, we would have to dedicate in-house time and resources to that process as well. So I think, from my understanding, most of the agencies that consider that quickly reconsider it and leave it up to the experts and work on that split. That seems to be an equitable split.
Anything further? Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No, and that's carried. Hopefully they can show us the money. I've heard of other municipalities doing this as well, so I'm glad to see that we're doing this too. So. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith, that bylaw number 2021-7135 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a master agreement and customer supplier agreement with Top Desk Canada Incorporated for a user support ticket and inventory management software be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Horn, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. And I think we should have, we've got someone here that can give us the Coles Note version on this one, because this is a really thick package that we all had to read. And I think the public might want to be well aware of what we're doing. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would be happy to provide some insight to it. The long and the short of it is, throughout 2020, staff worked with Parry Group to identify opportunities for efficiency and how to better serve internal customers as well as the public through efficiency. And one of the identified recommendations was a more thorough user ticketing system that also included inventory management. The long and the short of it is, for a long time, we've been using a homegrown internally built database, and it served us quite well for I guess the last 5 or 6, 7 years. But the reality is it lacks a lot of the functionality that we need for life cycle planning, to be able to better target our budgeting, better align the various replacement cycles. And Top Desk checked all those boxes and then some. It came in significantly less than what the Parry Group recommended might be a cost, and we're quite pleased with that. I guess what makes this different than other procurement type softwares that we've dealt with in the past is this is the first time we're going through the OECM, which is a provincial level buying group, and it's there's quite a number of buying groups out there now that kind of provide opportunities for municipalities, not-for-profits, organizations with variable charity status to significantly reduce their operating costs through licensing. And so we've joined on with the OECM, and that's one of the reasons why that it's a book, as you referenced. The OECM program is very well thought out. It's quite robust, and it provides certain assurances to the customers that you're getting what you're paying for. Built into the agreement, you would have seen that there's a service level agreement, and they get down to the nitty gritty, describing when staff should expect a support return call, among other things. So in a lot of ways, it did go pretty far out into the weeds, but I think that's exactly what we need. And we need to be able to have the buying power of organizations considerably larger than ourselves.
Good. Any questions? No? Okay. Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No, that's carried then. Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Burden, that bylaw number 2021-7133 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw as amended for George Street, John Jackson Planner Incorporated on behalf of Frasher, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's good. It's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden, second by Councillor Borneman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Mr. Algie, is there anything you wanted to add?
Through your worship, no, there's nothing else I'd like to add. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I noticed a comment in the material when I was looking at it that about the location of the building and moving it to the other side of the property. Is that going to be a consideration which would alleviate some of the concerns of the neighbors that were addressing the issue of having apartments looking right down into their backyards?
Yes, through your worship, I believe it will succeed in doing that. So the bottom of page 3, I tried to show the before and after diagrams of where it was proposed. Now the building is in the bottom left-hand corner, so the southwest corner of the lot. It has about a 30+ meter setback from the lot line nearest the residential development. So that's it's over 100-foot setback, and the parking lot is, I believe, about 12 meters itself. So that does give quite an ample setback, in my opinion, and should help with many of those concerns that were raised.
Yeah. And then, of course, nothing would be determined really until the site plan's actually done, but this is a consideration, right? Yeah.
Yes, I actually put into the text of the bylaw that that setback would be required. So the site plan, largely, the building should be in that rough envelope, give or take a couple meters, just to provide a necessary amount of flexibility.
Okay.
But then the site plan stage would also be looking at either increased vegetative buffering or fencing if required. I gave the option of both because a 12-meter setback, you could in theory get quite a good vegetative strip out that could be more efficient than just privacy fencing.
Yeah. Councillor Bornman.
Well, I was happy to, Mr. Algie, to hear you mention that they'd been encouraged to maintain that vegetative buffering, because I think that trees are a positive thing anywhere, anytime, but in delineating separation from the property and mitigating noise concerns and all of the rest of it, I think that that's a preferable and far more cost-effective solution than building and maintaining a fence in today's climate.
Yeah, Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of questions. I noticed on, I guess I renumbered it myself, so I'll just tell you what I'm talking about. And the one had to do with, backtrack. This was certainly a lot to read. So it certainly was a lot of information that was presented here. So it required some serious thinking. Now, what I wanted to be clear on, when it says the sound levels for the study, the sound levels modestly exceed Ministry of Environment guidelines. What does that really mean? Like, how much is modest? Because I don't know. What does that really mean?
Through your worship, I don't actually know how to describe that, but because of that, there were some recommendations that came out of it. So I think since the volume is a little bit louder than what they'd expect, one of the recommendations, for instance, is that they want central air and central heating, so people don't have to have their window open in the summer to stay cool. So if a train's going by, you can close the window, you still have central air, and you won't overheat in your room and whatnot. They also, in this case, they recommended a bunch of warning clauses on title. And largely the purpose of that is so the rail line could say, anyone who buys this or moves into it is aware that we were here first and we're going to keep on being here. And it does make sense.
I have a couple more questions. One had to do again with parking, I recall in reading this. And I just wanted to be clear, the number of, what I call them, barrier-free parking spots, are they consistent with our bylaw?
Sorry, my volume cut out there. Could you repeat the question?
Yes.
I heard barrier-free.
Yeah, in reference to the I've got two more questions. So in reference to the parking spots, the number of, I think they're called barrier-free parking spots, the disabled parking spots, are they consistent, the number for this Plan 36 unit, are they consistent with our bylaw, or are there any extras being added to that?
Through your worship, we don't really have that detail shown yet, but it looks like there is 2 on the site plan. The zoning stage doesn't quite get into that level of detail, but 2 would be the minimum requirement for the bylaw of 1 per 30 spaces, and they're going to require about 40 some parking spaces here. So that is correct. So yes to your question.
My last question is, and like I said, there was a lot here to read, and I'm just wondering, for the water sewer capacity, and maybe it's just me, it would seem that my question is, are we going to have enough? But also, I'm wondering if, whenever something like this comes up, if we had maybe something like a chart so we could see developments and how much we're impacting on our water sewer capacity, so you have a better idea. So when you look at something like that, was that clearly written out here, and perhaps I've missed it?
Through your worship, as of right now, there are no capacity concerns for the development. But as a precaution, what we do in these cases on the holding provision before it can be lifted, we note that the developer has to ensure adequate water and sewer capacity. Rationale for that is in case the zoning sits for 10, 15 years, we always want that provision to be active. So everyone's protected, future buyer or the town. Although in this case, they seem quite optimistic. They want to start early. We do track capacity already. We don't have it so much in a document on this, but we have tables internally where we have all developments that are proposed, and we have them from inquiries to pre-zone to site plans that aren't registered or built yet, where we do track capacity.
I was just going to say, though, I still think something like a chart. So when you look at this, a graph, whatever, you could have a better idea. I think it would be helpful. And I appreciate having that provision for whenever a development occurs. But again, if we had some sort of a tracking graph, that sort of thing, then every year when we're coming up to budget, it might be helpful in that area too.
Councillor Keith, I think that would be the more appropriate time to see that, not tagged with an actual development. But you don't want the two of them tied together. That's all. And what Mr. Elgie is mentioning with regard to that they are responsible is the right way, because if they waited 10 years, like he said, well, then there might be an issue at that time. But if they're going to build sooner rather than later, that's a good thing. Councillor Borneman.
Mr. Elgie, the other piece that caught my eye in the literature that you provided was there seemed to be a number of potential configurations here, different numbers of 1 and 2 bedroom units and so on. I expect that will all be nailed down tighter in the site plan agreement, will it? And that probably goes back to some extent to Councillor Keith's question about capacity issues as well. If we have more of one type of unit, the usage might be greater, expected to be greater than if we have less.
True. Mr. Elgie.
Yes, through your worship. So we actually were pretty specific in the bylaw. So I mentioned right in the bylaw maximum of 12 2-bedroom units, and the remainder shall be 1-bedroom units. To be honest, the rationale for that wasn't so much sewage capacity. It was the fact that the development was over the density envisioned in the official plan of 50 units per hectare. The rationale that the applicant's agent provided said, well, if we had all 2-bedroom units and met the density requirement, you would actually have more people living on the property and a bigger building than the makeup of what we're going for. So it was a little bit of there's a lot of assumptions to the math in the table. It's in the report, but the logic of it does make sense that the number of units isn't really what dictates how many people live on the property. It's the amount of bedrooms, and in the end, you can come to a similar number of human beings. And that was also some concerns from neighbors saying how many people are going to be living there. So this keeps it in line with the intent of the official plan.
Good. Any other questions, comments? Councillor McCann, and then Councillor Backman.
Yeah, I was just wondering when we might expect the site plan and when the shovels would go into the ground. Is that in the near future, do you think? We talked about building sooner than later.
I don't know, sorry, through your worship, I don't know the answer to that question. They did mention that they're eager on this project, but I haven't heard those details yet. So sorry, Councillor McCann.
No problem, thank you.
Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Mr. Elgie, thank you very much for the thorough presentation. That's a lot of information and a lot of reports that have been completed since the public meeting. One of the questions I had in regards to the sidewalks, will the sidewalks be standard to meet the ODA requirements? And
through your worship, yes, they would be built to the standards of you said AODA, correct? Yes, and that is also an expectation in the development agreement that they be connected to 4 streets so people can safely get to the existing sidewalk grid.
Thank you.
Okay, are we good? Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? Nope, that's carried then. What I will say before we go to the confirming bylaw is I've had a lot of emails and comments and phone calls from people with regard to the lack of availability of rental units and the cost of rental units and that sort of thing. And, you know, some of the purchase arrangements and different things that are happening in the community, and we need more rental units. That's the bottom line right now. Anyway, moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Bachman, that bylaw number 2021-7136 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Bachman, second by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No one's opposed. That's carried. So, prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, June 1st, 2021 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held via Zoom video conferencing and will be live streamed and recorded, hopefully. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. The council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. And for Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. We apologize for the fact that it was not live streamed tonight, but it is recorded, and staff are going to do their utmost to get this up and on the website so that people can watch. Anyway, thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank
Night
you,
now.
everyone. Thank you.